Glass packaging has a way of making almost any product feel elevated. A serum instantly feels more premium. A bottle feels cleaner, more intentional, more luxurious. Even before you use the product, the packaging already changes how you see it. But that finished look hides a much more intense process. Because glass cosmetic packaging doesn't start as a beautiful bottle sitting on a shelf. It starts with raw materials, extreme heat, and a formation process that has to be controlled down to the smallest detail. I'm Jason, the founder and CEO of Paking, and in this video we're breaking down how glass cosmetic packaging is actually made, from the raw ingredients, to melting, to bottle forming, to decoration and branding. Along the way, we'll show how brands like Skincare and Daybreak create glass packaging that feels worth picking up. Glass has held its place in beauty, skincare, and wellness for a long time, and that's not by accident. While other materials like plastic or paper can offer lower cost or more convenience, glass continues to stand out because of the kind of experience it creates. The moment someone picks up a glass bottle, the product can feel heavier, cleaner, more refined, and more intentional. Before the formula is even opened, the packaging is already shaping perception. That matters a lot in categories where trust and presentation go hand in hand. In skincare and cosmetics, packaging often becomes part of the ritual itself. The weight of a serum bottle, the clarity of the glass, the softness of a frosted finish, or the silhouette of a dropper all help communicate something about the product inside. It can make a formula feel more clinical, more natural, more luxurious, or more elevated depending on how those details come together. That's what makes glass so powerful. It doesn't just contain the product, it helps create the product experience. For brands, that means glass packaging becomes a tool for storytelling just as much as it is a structural choice. Shape, thickness, finish, and decoration all start doing emotional work long before the customer ever tests what is inside. What's interesting is that a finished glass bottle can look incredibly simple. Smooth walls, clear structure, clean branding, but that simplicity is the result of a very controlled process. To understand why one bottle feels generic and another feels premium, it starts before the branding and before the shelf presence, at the stage where the material itself is still being created. Every glass cosmetic bottle starts with a formula before it ever starts with a shape. The core materials usually include silica sand, soda ash, and limestone, each chosen for a specific purpose in helping the glass melt, stabilize, and form correctly. In some cases, recycled glass, also known as cullet, is added to the mix to support efficiency and influence how the batch behaves during production. This stage matters because the final quality of the bottle is already being decided here. The clarity of the glass, its strength, its consistency, and even how smoothly it forms later on all connect back to the starting composition. If the material mixes off, the bottle can end up with weak points, visual imperfections, or inconsistencies that hurt both performance and perception. So while it may look like the least exciting part of the process, this is really the chemical foundation of the entire package. And once that formula is set, the next step is where those raw materials are pushed into extreme heat and transform into something workable. Once the raw materials have been measured and mixed, they're fed into a high-temperature furnace where the real transformation begins. Inside that furnace, the batch is heated until it becomes molten glass, turning a dry blend of minerals into a glowing liquid that can actually be shaped into a container. And temperature has to be carefully controlled so the glass reaches the right consistency for forming. If it's too thick, it won't move and shape properly. If it's too fluid, it becomes harder to control with precision. That balance is critical because consistency here affects everything that comes after. At this point, the material is finally formable, but it still has no structure of its own. So the next stage is where molten glass is divided, guided, and shaped into the first recognizable version of a cosmetic bottle. This is the point where the packaging starts to become real. Once the glass is molten and ready, it's cut into measured portions called gobs or preforms. Each gob is then directed into a mold, where heat, timing, and air pressure work together to create the bottle's body, neck, and overall silhouette. In many cases, glass cosmetic packaging is formed through blow molding, which helps expand the hot glass evenly against the inside of the mold. This stage demands a lot of precision. The mold determines the overall design, but the process itself controls whether that design comes out clean and consistent. Wall thickness has to be managed carefully. The neck has to be accurate enough to fit closures properly. The proportions have to feel balanced and intentional. Each mold has to be carefully designed and can cost between $5,000 and $10,000 for simple designs, while complex or multi-part molds can exceed $10,000 to $50,000. And that's what makes finished glass bottles so deceptive. They often look simple, but that simplicity depends on a very controlled shaping process. Once the bottle has taken form, the next challenge is just as important, making sure it cools the right way so it doesn't carry hidden stress into the finished product. Freshly formed glass bottles can't just be left to cool however they want. If glass cools too quickly, internal stress can build up inside the material, which makes it far more likely to crack, chip, or fail later on. That's why bottles go through a process called annealing, where they move through a controlled cooling system that gradually lowers the temperature over time. This may not be the most visually exciting part of the process, but it's one of the most important. A bottle can look flawless on the outside and still be structurally compromised if it wasn't cooled correctly. Annealing helps stabilize the glass so it can handle filling, transportation, storage, and regular customer use without unnecessary fragility. It also reminds you that with glass packaging, strength isn't just about thickness, it's about control. The way the bottle is cooled plays a major role in whether it feels reliable in the real world. And once that internal structure is stabilized, the bottle is finally ready for the next phase, where it begins to look and feel more like a finished beauty product. After the bottle has been formed and cooled, it may still need additional refinement before it looks shelf ready. This is where surface treatment comes in. Depending on the intended design, the glass may be frosted, tinted, coated, polished, sprayed, or otherwise treated to achieve a specific appearance and feel. These finishing decisions can also influence scratch resistance, clarity, and how the package interacts with light. This stage is where the bottle starts to develop more personality. Clear glass can feel clean and clinical. Frosted glass can feel softer and more elevated. A tinted amber bottle can create mood, warmth, or a stronger sense of identity. In beauty and skincare especially, that kind of emotional signaling matters because the packaging is already shaping expectations before the product is ever used. So this step is not just cosmetic. It helps determine how the customer reads the brand at first glance. And once the surface has been refined, the bottle is finally ready for the step most people recognize immediately, the branding that turns a formed package into a branded product. This is where the bottle stops being just a container and starts becoming part of a brand system. Once the structure and finish are complete, decoration can be added through methods like screen printing, labeling, hot stamping, coating, or other custom applications depending on the desired look. This is where logos, typography, color, and visual hierarchy all begin to work together on the surface of the package. For cosmetic brands, these choices carry a lot of weight. The exact same bottle can feel clinical, luxurious, earthy, modern, or apothecary-inspired, depending on how the branding is handled. A soft, frosted bottle with minimal black type can feel calm and elevated. A transparent bottle with bolder contrast can feel sharper and more modern. Those details change how the product is perceived before the customer even interacts with what's inside. That's why branding on glass matters so much. It doesn't just identify the product, it shapes its emotional read. But before the bottle is ready for filling, shipping, and shelf placement, it still has to pass one last stage where appearance alone is not enough. Before any glass cosmetic bottle is ready for market, it goes through quality control. The packaging is checked for visual and structural issues like bubbles, cracks, uneven wall thickness, surface defects, decoration inconsistencies, and dimensional problems. The neck finish and opening may also be tested to make sure pumps, caps, droppers, or closures fit correctly and seal the way they're supposed to. This step matters because premium packaging has to perform, not just look good. A bottle can photograph beautifully and still create problems in production or in the customer experience if the tolerances are off. In beauty and skincare, that kind of inconsistency can quickly damage trust, especially when customers expect the product to feel clean, intentional, and high quality from the first touch. So quality control becomes the final checkpoint between an attractive object and a reliable finished package. It protects the integrity of every step that came before it. And once the bottle clears that final standard, the process can finally deliver what the customer sees on shelf. A finished piece of glass packaging that feels simple, premium, and complete. And this is where the full process starts to mean something. What began as a mix of raw materials like silica sand, soda ash, and limestone has now moved through melting, forming, cooling, surface refinement, branding, and inspection to become a finished cosmetic bottle. By the end of that journey, the result feels calm, simple, and intentional. Smooth walls, clean proportions, a finish that catches light the right way, branding that feels like it belongs there instead of being placed on as an afterthought. That's what makes glass packaging so interesting. In its final form, it can look effortless, but that sense of effortlessness is earned through control at every stage. The composition of the glass matters, the heat matters, the mold matters, the cooling process matters, the finish matters. Every one of those decisions leaves a mark on how the bottle performs and how the brand is perceived. And that's really the bigger takeaway here. Great glass packaging isn't just about making something look beautiful on a shelf. It's about creating something that feels trustworthy, premium, and aligned with the product inside. A well-made glass bottle helps communicate care, quality, and intention before the customer even opens it. So by the time the bottle is finished, you're not just looking at a container. You're looking at the result of a process where material, manufacturing, and brand identity all had to work together to create something that feels worth picking up. That's where the right packaging partner can make a real difference. At Packing Duck, we help brands bring custom glass packaging to life with the right balance of structure, finish, functionality, and branding. We've helped create packaging for brands like Skincare and Daybreak, turning ideas into bottles that don't just hold a product, but help shape how that product is experienced from the very first touch. So if you're building a beauty, skincare, or wellness product and want packaging that feels intentional from start to finish, click the link in the description for a free consultation. And if you want more behind-the-scenes breakdowns on how packaging gets made, how brands use materials to shape perception, and what it really takes to turn an idea into a finished product, subscribe for more.